Hey,
Hi.
how y'all doing? Listen, welcome to Miss Dre. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for riding with me. I have my great friend, Miss Kathleen, here, and we have an awesome segment for you all today. We are teachers.
Wow.
Right. So in my last segment, I told y'all I went back to teaching. And so we wanted to come on and give some parents advice on how can you better help your student be successful in the classroom? How can you work with your teacher, with your student's teacher, and become a team player in building your student and building your child as much as possible academically, socially, professionally, all that good stuff. So you ready to get into this?
Let's go. I'm ready.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is an honor and a privilege. I'm excited.
Me too. I really appreciate it. So listen, I don't know if I said before, but I've only been teaching for 6 years. This is my sixth
it's been 6
year.
years already?
Yes.
Wow.
Look, remember you was helping me write them papers
Yes,
and
I just
stuff?
found your thank you note you sent me.
So look, it's good to have some good people around, some good people. So, and you want to tell about how long you've been teaching?
I've been teaching. This is my 30th year.
Wow.
So I will have 30 years in the game. November will be my 30th year anniversary.
So if you got some 30-year-olds that may have come through that DeKalb County school
That's
system,
right.
y'all might have
had me.
Or had, yes.
Miss Gray or Miss Rudd. I was both.
Both in the school system. So yeah, she has been there teaching and training and uplifting and building your children throughout the DeKalb County school system. Now I'm here out in Newton County, and so we often have conversations about what we can do as far as like uplifting our students and making sure that they're getting the best education possible. So we want to help you parents make sure that you're tag teaming with your teacher to make sure your child is getting what they need. So I reached out to some other teachers, and they kind of gave us a couple of pointers that we needed to hit on, and we all, we concluded that we had the same consensus of some of the things that parents need to know to assist their student, assist their child. One of the main things I feel like it is get to know your teacher, get to know your child's teacher. That communication is big. It is, it's vital for you to be seen often. Be active in your child's life inside the school. If you can volunteer, go volunteer. If not, join those digital platforms.
Yes, absolutely.
Remind, Group Meet,
Class Dojo,
and make sure you just communicating. So what you want to
add? I agree with you, Andrea. As you were saying, to be involved and engaged, it brought to mind that what does involvement look like? And that involvement looks differently at different levels. So your involvement looks different from when your child is in kindergarten versus when your child is in 5th grade, versus when your child is in middle school, versus when your child is in high school. So it's always an involvement, but we know that heavily, to be heavily involved and active early on is very beneficial for the child, for the parent as well, and for that educational team that we were talking about, which is administration, teachers, parents, and students. So to be involved, to find out what being involved looks like, number one, and you don't even have to ask anybody this, but number one, when your child comes home with their book bag, look in their book bag. At the very least, you would be surprised. I've had students who have had a book bag with the same things that they had in August in the book bag in May.
Wow.
So notices that come home, graded work that comes home, all of those things, you can just look in the book bag and tell what kind of day, what kind of experience your child is having. Number one, look in the book bag. Number two, talk to your child. Have a conversation with them. I know we live different kind of lives now. Not too many people are sitting at the dinner table. It's kind of gone by the wayside.
Right.
But riding in the car going to Little League practice, or riding in the car going to Bible study, or riding in the car going to grandma's house, or wherever you are, just talk to your child about what they're learning. That question that we normally ask our kids is, how was school? And what is the answer that we normally get?
It was okay.
It was okay. It was good. Fine. And the conversation ends. I propose that you don't ask, how was school today? What did you do in school today? Tell me one thing you learned in math. Tell me one thing that was hard in math. Tell me one thing that you learned in reading. Tell me one thing that you did well in reading. So that they can be specific about what they're doing. And it also helps to solidify their learning for that day. If a child is coming home telling you, Mom, we learned about the solar system. Did you know that Pluto is no longer a planet? Those types of things. If once you're getting excited about, and we're all parents. Sometimes you're not really excited. Fake it. Oh, really? I had no idea. I really don't care, but had no idea. Let your child know that you're invested in what they're learning and their experiences. That turns the tables totally when it comes to your child's success. If a child knows that their parents are interested in what they're interested in, or their parents are interested in their success, they will be successful, and they will try a lot harder if they know at home the family culture is, we want you to do the best that you can. So they're just not hearing it from us. Did I answer your question?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Because I get passionate.
Look, that's what that 30 years.
Yeah, I get passionate about involvement, and then that's at the early age. But then as they get older, moms and dads, we kind of have to
loosen the strings.
I had talked to my friend about that a little bit. Sometimes you have to, let them fall, and then also just let them fail. Sometimes it's okay to fail. How many times have we failed and we learn from our failures? You learn much more from your failures than you do your successes. So, let them fall, be there, be a soft place when they fall, be able to help them to regroup. And know that everything is okay, and they can persevere. But as they get older, your involvement will change, and I think you can attest to this.
It's
too.
Supposed to change.
Well, you're right. Your involvement's supposed to change now. And I know you can attest to the fact that once our children got in high school, well, I can say I couldn't tell you what they were really doing in terms of the content. Now, I knew grades, and I knew, why didn't you turn this in?
Stuff that was missing.
Yeah, stuff that was missing.
Or
late. So I knew those types of things. But in terms of the content, no, I could not help them with the content. I could get them help. I could still check in with the teacher and say, well, what do you see as their weaknesses? What do I need to help them with? But they were pretty much, I was getting, but because we had done so much work in the beginning, they were kind of okay to be independent and take, those more rigorous classes and advocate for themselves as they got older. So it does change. I have to tell parents, sometimes, okay, you have to just let it, don't be so overbearing. But if, like I said, in the beginning, when they're just starting school, in those first, 4 to 5 years, make sure that you are a presence. Make sure that you're giving them all of the support they need. Make sure they have their school supplies. If they don't have school supplies and you can't get the school supplies, that's okay. There are plenty of places that you can I know in the summertime.
Oh yeah,
that give resources.
Backpack drives and
One of the main things I know for even my students now is them feeling bad because they don't have what they need to be successful. And the days are gone when the teacher can just supply everything. The school can't do it. We supply what we can, but they want their own stuff, and so that helps them to feel successful as well. They don't. So those are the nuggets I have in terms of.
I would say, and don't be afraid to ask questions. If you can't get the supplies, ask. And most of the time, our counselors,
absolutely,
they have resources that they can connect you with, so you can get those supplies. If you don't understand the content, what they're going over in class, ask the teacher, and don't just be like, well, I can't help you, what we can't do. Because I did have a student was like, well, I didn't understand how to do this. And know what I did? I sent her a YouTube video that broke it down a little bit more, because I can't go home and teach her.
Right.
But I can give her some resources to help her student. And she was so grateful. She was like, oh my goodness, thank you. This makes more sense.
But she asked you.
She asked.
Right.
She asked. I got to the point where I was just, okay, let me just go ahead and supply everybody with this. Since she didn't know. So I was like, okay, well, let me just start just giving it to everybody. And so it was beneficial, because I know we get to the point where we don't want to look stupid. We're the parent, and so we don't want to be that parent. But your child will be that child if they don't understand that they're not getting the support they need.
Yeah.
So
definitely
it's important.
Have to ask for help. And if and then even when we're not asking for help, the schools, I know schools are overjoyed or to give out whatever they have. We have parent resource centers, we have PTAs, we have parent teacher conferences. We have a lot of opportunities for parents to engage with their school, with their student, with the curriculum, so that they can feel a little more confident.
Right.
And parents, stakeholders have to take advantage of what the schools are offering. If PTA time is not a good time as a whole for parents, gather with the parents and say, we need to talk to the school and say, all right, 6:00 is unreasonable for us to come to PTA. Is there any other time we can do PTA? Yeah. Is there any other way that we can do PTA? Now, what COVID has taught us was we can do everything virtually. Yes. So can we do PTA virtually? We might, or on Zoom. So talk to your schools. Come up with ideas. Talk to your parents, your kids' friends' parents, to come up with ideas on how you can more effectively and creatively engage with the school.
And reach out to the teacher, because she may have an outside. She may even be able to meet with you on the weekends. If you can't go to the PTA meetings or the parent teacher conferences, we are human. We understand. Yeah, we have busy lives just like you. So we are willing to, be creative, using Zoom, FaceTime, it's so Skype, whatever. Try to find something, just even if it's just maybe like once a semester, or but be seen. Let your teacher know that you care about your student, because that's one thing that when I first started teaching, and I kind of got that misconception, it's just that if the parent doesn't show up, then they don't care for the child. It's definitely not true, because of course they care, but they just don't understand how to build that relationship with the teacher and work as a team. And so now that I've, just 6 years in, but I've interacted with a lot of parents. And so I recognize that they need to be reached in a different way. They need to be, some of them, it's not, they don't connect when you, well, hello, how are you? You got, hey, Miss Johnson, let me tell you what Bonquisha, you know what I'm saying? That's what because they recognize that you're real, and that you're not trying to put on this here such a professional facade, and you're not able to relate to them. And I have built so many relationships with my parents, because I'm just like, hey girl, how you doing?
And see that what you said is key. Building connections and relationships with parents and families. Building connections and relationships with your students. You have to do that first. And so we know as professionals and as teachers, educators, that's what we have to do first, build those relationships. So, and once we build those relationships, then we can communicate with you and we'll be heard. But just like Andrea said, we're human. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
When we make a mistake, typically, I can guarantee you it's not out of any kind of malintent. But when we make mistakes, hey, just call it to our attention, and in a respectful manner. So that just goes back to building relationships. If I have a relationship with you, I'm going to come to you differently, and interact with you differently. So I would suggest that you always want to build a relationship with your teacher, with your students, your child's teacher.
And one thing, as far as like when we're talking about asking questions, like you said, when they got to high school, you wasn't really up on what the content was. But I feel like elementary, the content is kind of basic. Like, kindergarten, you got to learn your letters. Right, you got to learn your numbers. Right. When you're going up to first grade, we'll skip counting. We're looking at shapes a little bit more, looking at 2D and 3D shapes. The difference between the square and the cube, where, social studies and science is starting to get, that vocabulary a little bit. And so I feel like it's the same, it just kind of gets a little bit more detail every year. Yeah. So
I agree with that. And also, because it made me think about, I have a daughter who's a senior in high school, and I teach 5th grade. So she was taking U.S. history, and I teach social studies. Well, when I tell you that she was learning the same thing that I was teaching. She was learning about World War I was teaching World War I. Now, I was teaching it at a different level, of course. I was teaching foundation, just basically what happened and why it happened and what was the consequence of it.
A couple of the generals that were in the major wars.
The major wars. We did a couple of the presidents that were involved and that sort of thing. She got deeper into it, but we were able to have a conversation based on what I was teaching and what she was learning at a different level. So again, it's the same standards throughout, but they are just built upon and they dive deeper. So so by the time they're a senior, if they've been paying attention since kindergarten and they're staying in Georgia, where we have the same standards, then by the time they're a senior, they should have a great grasp on what they're learning. Especially in those 4 basic subjects. Your English, your math, social studies, and science. Well, maybe not science, but definitely social studies, reading, and math. They build upon each other. And so and you have access to everything. You have access to all of the standards. All you have to go is to go to gadoe.org. They have resources for testing. They have sample tests on there.
It's long. You can see. It's about 100 pages long,
but you can see what they're expected to do. A lot of parents aren't even aware of what the Georgia Milestones has on it. And what how the questions are formed. We still think in terms of how questions were formed for us a million years ago, and that's not how they're asking our babies questions.
And that's what throws them, how the question is worded.
Not that they don't know the information, but can they even get through the question to answer the question? And these questions have 2 and 3 parts.
Right.
So they'll answer a question one part of it, and then but forget the rest of it, and that kind of knocks them out too.
Right. And that kind of goes into with knowing the content, because they got to do these short answers. So you got to know how to write. You got to know that a sentence starts with a capital letter, ends with some type of punctuation. You can't just keep talking and talking and talking and talking, and you have no stopping point. Right. So all of those standards, because they're connecting everything, the math, because you got to explain how you got your answer. It's connected to your English. So it's important to get that foundation and then grow from there.
And I know one of the things that we were talking about off air was about how we can teach at home and teachable moments at home. And that's one of them. When you're at home and your child says something, have them explain it. Well, what do you mean? Mom, I can't find my sneakers. Okay.
Right.
What does that mean?
Right.
Is so force them to say what the problem is and how they're going to solve that problem. But just telling me that you can't find your sneakers, it really doesn't do anything. I know I have students who say, I don't have a pencil. Okay. I don't know what you want to do.
And I always say, you just gave me a statement.
You just gave me a statement. You didn't ask me anything. And then they get mad because you didn't ask anything.
Nothing.
So just those types of things, and I know at home is a lot more relaxed. It's supposed to be. But to get in the habit of explaining themselves, how something happened. Why do you think this happened? Okay, the juice fell on the floor, for young kids. Okay, the juice fell on the floor. Why did that happen? Because I put the glass on the edge of the table. Right. And then I knocked it over. And so how can we not have that happen again? Giving them details. And so from talking about that, then eventually they'll be able to write about that. And to include details in their writing. Watching people, and I know this is something that we all have kind of faltered on, is seeing people read at home. Having books at home. Having having people, seeing people write at home. One of the things, my kids are different, but when we used to, this is before they had the DVDs in the trucks and you could watch TV. We never had that where you could just watch TV in the truck while you going to the grocery store.
Oh, well.
You had to watch a commercial, a cartoon. But we used to have those milk cartons full of books. And they would sit in the back seat. And that's what they would do. They would read books. Not saying everybody has to do that, but that's the way that we chose to introduce them to books and to have them used to reading and to have them want to read.
Right.
And that's so much now.
No, what we had, when we had that tape cassette, then they had the little books, and so it read along. And you heard that beep when it's time to turn the page.
Yes.
Now, not with my son, but with my daughter.
Yes.
So she had that, and I found it. I was like, I wonder if this tape still works.
I remember that. That's right, exactly. And then go to the dollar store and get the $1.25 store now, but and get those composition notebooks. Mine they would sometimes when they were young. They'd just be writing, wouldn't be writing anything. But as time went on, okay, write about what you see. Write about what you did when we went to the park. Write about, and I had them writing. I had them reading. So those are teachable moments that we had at home that carried over into the classroom and into their success.
And that was one thing that we were talking about off air too. Like, do all parents do that? Because we're teachers, our daughter may come to later, but I guess that mentality was there to make everything at home a teachable moment. Make, just include different things. We're going to the grocery store. If that candy bar 50 cents and you got $1, how many can you get? Don't forget about tax. Right. So like, how much tax you gonna need? So just making everything just, something that you can just grow from and that you can use in your education.
In your everyday life. Because like grocery store is a perfect example of how we can be using math and reading. Again, giving them, okay, this is a list of what we have to buy. Look at the signs on the aisle. Where are we going to find the cereal? Where are we going to find the sugar? And going to those aisles and then comparing your prices. And as they get older and learn about percentages, doing that tax. And those types of things. And then they can make a connection between that and when they go to school and they're learning about percentages and fractions.
That's the most
baking in the cooking and baking in the kitchen.
Yes,
they love to do that. So recipes are full of math and full of reading and full of fractions and all of those things. And if you don't put a piece in, what's going to happen? You're not going to get the same result.
Right.
So all those are teachable moments and fairly cheap ways to continue your child's learning.
I have fifth graders that often like, when am I going to use this? And with the fractions, when you're baking, with the decimals, when you're getting money when you're paying for something. Do you want me to move this decimal? And I often use it. I say, do you want me to move it? And I'm giving you $70 when you're supposed to get $700. Which one you want? Which one you want? And so their eyes be like, it's a big difference. Just that moving the decimal from one place. And so they start to listen and pay attention more because it's something that they can relate to. They know money.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, wow, that's a big difference. Yes. 7,700. Which one? So, just making that connection.
Right. If you have a pizza, do you want 1/9 of the pizza, or do you want 3/9 of the pizza, or do you, and so do you want more pizza or less pizza? How to, and how to tell that. So that's another way that we can incorporate math in our everyday life.
Another thing that we talked about is, or looked at, is the importance of bringing your child to school every day. We understand they get sick and there's some things that happen, but the way our curriculum is set up, we cover so much. If you miss 2 days, it's almost like you done missed 2-3 weeks because it's a lot of material that we have to try to put in. And I know with me, I'm in I'm not in the gen ed department. So I do take it a little bit slower, and I feel obligated. Like if I've had especially with COVID, if they're out for a long time, I feel I'm like, okay, well, I got to sit with this student and catch them up. Because if I send homework home, might not come back. And so it's like, so I feel like, okay, well, I got to take my planning time. I got to take, just before class, call the student in. Let's go over this and just try to get them caught up. And so
that's hard to do.
It's
hard to do to catch the students up. But yeah, you're right. Attendance is key. Being at school every day and being at school every day on time. So if transportation is an issue, and if you ride a school bus and you live where the school bus comes and pick you up, let the child ride the school bus, so that we know that they get to school, they can get breakfast, and they can get to school on time. If you drive your students to school, then that's just an extra added responsibility that you're going to have to make sure that everybody gets up earlier and is able to get to school so they can get breakfast and they can be in their seat at the time. Because let me tell you, kids do not like being late to school. They just don't. They don't like being late to school. They don't like missing school. No matter what they say, they don't like coming in and being behind and not they knowing. They don't. And that impacts their behavior.
It shows in their behavior.
It impacts their success and their achievement. Very few students, especially young students, can come in and say, okay, I know I was absent yesterday, can you give me what I need so that I can take care of this and catch up. These young kids, it's hard to catch them up. Now you're talking about high school, older kids who are who are a lot more independent and responsible and take responsibility for their own learning. That's different.
Right.
But especially these young babies, we have to make sure that they're at school, ready to learn. We will feed them. I know you all feed yours as well. Yeah, everybody's feeding their, got them eating breakfast. And so that they're in lunch. Yeah, we are too. So in their seats, ready to learn. And that goes into what I saw on your notes about making sure they're not upset.
Yep, and that's what I was gonna go into. Yeah, and so like she said, bringing them to school on time, making sure that they're there so they can be on the same playing field with their other classmates. And so that is one important thing too, as far as making sure you trying not to upset them before you. And I'm one, like, I can be like, you gonna go to school and blah 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 blah. Now get out the car. And they like, and I've had a teacher be like, was another okay? She said, yeah, she fine. Like, don't you ask me nothing.
You crazy.
And send them right on. But yeah, try not to upset them babies because it messes up their whole day. It messes up their whole entire day. And then so we as teachers, we're trying to be like, well, what's wrong? And trying to get them to a point where they can focus. But yeah, it's rough. And then just understanding, even just with COVID, outside of COVID, these kids have a lot going on. I remember when I was in second grade and my aunt passed. And so she's right below my mom.
Oh wow.
And so I remember, had to go to school. I don't know. I can't remember if it happened like that Sunday or when did she pass, but I ended up going to school. And as soon as I got in the classroom, I had my head down. And so second grade, so I'm just bawling. And I can hear my classmates like, what's wrong with Andrea? And so I would hear two of the boys, you must have did something to her. So they back and forth. And so they didn't know. But everything that happens in your world, it affects your kids.
Yeah.
It really affects them. And so if, those are some of the times that maybe you do need to keep them home. Just to, give them a little more love and just to help them understand what's going on or have them talk it out. Because in one of my episodes was the end of the year, and I talked about how we had a lot of loss in our family. And so my son told my daughter, they were talking about, how they felt about the situation. And he was like, yeah, when I got to school, I cried. And I was like, well, why you ain't tell us or, try to talk to us? But I guess, like I say, when I got to school, when I was, younger, and so I guess you start thinking about it. Once you hear it and it's like, okay, you okay. But then when you get to school,
just don't know when it's going to hit.
And you start processing things. And so try to make sure they're, just going to school on a positive note.
And then, and to that, I've had parents to give me a heads up when things, again, back to communication, when things are when things are a little rocky at the house, or if something has happened, a life event has happened at the house, and they've just given me kind of a, just a text. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be drawn out in detail where you're trying to get in your business, so to speak. Wow. But they will, I've had parents say, this such and such has happened or something. He might be a little weepy today, and then I'll say, well, I'll keep my eye out, and I'll give him a little more extra love if he needs it today. But I'll keep my eye out and let you know how he's doing. But those are ways that if something does happen that's traumatic in the child's life, and you do send them to school, just let the teacher know, so that they can kind of because we all want the best for our kids. We love our students, and we want to support them the best way that we can. So and to Andrea made a great point that although we say send your child to school, as attendance is important, and it is, but we also recognize that mental health is important. Yes. And and here recently we've really started thinking about the mental health of our students and of our kids. And so if you know that things are not, if your child's not in a great headspace, just keep them home. A day is not going to kill them. And then again, like I said, you have access to all the resources. You have access to all the standards. I know we have pacing charts. And so we know exactly what we're teaching when. So you can look into that. And if you've been keeping up, okay, well, I know you're doing multiplication. So we're just going to do a couple of multiplications. Just do a little something at home. Yeah. But stay home and kind of spend that time with your child. And if you can, and help them to get in a better headspace to process. Taking a mental health day, even if they're not in a traumatic situation. But sometimes we all... need a time to just woosah, just to kind of sit down and and to reflect, or to just have a break. So if you notice that about your child, do that. That's actually a sick day. Right. That's actually an excused absence. So take care of your babies, and physically, mentally, keep up with their mental well-being as well.
And hug them.
Hug your children.
Hug them. First grade, I would have some of my students come in. I'm sitting at my desk. They desk way over. They come out and they just lay their head on my shoulder. I'm like, "What you want, Skylar? What you want?" Nothing. I just want to say good morning. So I'm like, "Oh, well, good morning." Then everybody line up, and so they just want a little love. They just want a little love, and it takes nothing from you as a teacher, or you as a parent, to show them some love. Yeah, that's it. Just let them be seen. I think I talked about in one of my other episodes is that kids just want to be heard and want to be seen. Sometimes we're going, and life is moving, and so you don't have time to just sit and let them kind of ramble along. But sometimes you got to take that time and just let them get whatever they want to get out their chest. And I had one student. Well, we were virtual.
Oh, wow.
This little thing, she wanted to talk. I'm like, look, okay, you got 2 minutes. Go. I got my time. And she'd be like, Miss Parks, my 2 minutes up is been up. Or I'd be like, well, you can stay after class and you can just talk to me, whatever you want to talk about. And so they love that connection. They just want to be seen.
Yeah,
they just want to be heard.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And I know in the schools, I don't know, there's a big push for this, social emotional learning. So we're doing what we can on top of teaching content, is to because we recognize that the social emotional well-being of our students is important.
It's important.
And so we're doing what we can to also incorporate that in what we're teaching, to help them with their coping skills, to help them with their processing, how they process things, and to help them with their emotions and those big emotions. I know that's what I'm talking to my 5th graders about, is these big emotions. And you'd be amazed that when we started having the conversation, that they really had, they could identify when they felt these big emotions, when they felt anger, when they felt stress. They understood what that meant and how that impacted their life. And when we don't take time to give them that space, it seeps out in all kinds of other
different
ways.
ways. Yeah.
We all know that 5th grade is, I said I would never teach 5th grade.
Me too. Well, I know I said never middle school,
but I can still say that.
5th grade,
I can still say that
right there.
Yeah, but 5th grade now, 5th grade is right there because right they are exposed to so many things through social media, through all of these platforms, through having these phones, through being on all these other social TikToking and all these social media platforms that they are getting all of this stimuli that they can't process. And so that seeps out in other kind of ways. Right. Aggression, fear. If you're constantly looking on your, I know for myself, when I'm looking on social media and I'm like, okay, I cannot see so-and-so died, so-and-so died, so-and-so died. I have to get away from it. So if your child is constantly seeing trauma, that impacts them. And so we want to be careful and to guard what they see and how much time they spend on those platforms, right? Because it does seep out in other ways. And one thing that connects that is, as far as like with their emotion, is understanding that everybody learns differently. Because if they're stressed out, then they're not going to be able to focus on the material. They're not going to be able to grasp the information. And so we as teachers, we have to be able to just reach each student. And I know it's difficult when you got 30 kids in the classroom, or 5th grade, and then y'all switching, you got 30 more, and then you got 30 more different ones that are coming every hour. And so you got to be able to reach each one of those children at their level and be able to make sure that they're getting the information and that you're breaking it down, scaffolding the information as much as possible so they can regurgitate it on the test. That's what it is. That's what right. And what we care about more than a test is we want our children to be lifelong learners. And we want them to want to learn. And we want them to be productive citizens. And so for that to happen, they have to be able to comprehend the information that we're giving them. So, so, and then, and also, and I know we're kind of just rattling off a whole lot of things, but one of the things that I would implore parents to do is we talk about communication with teachers. And when a teacher tells you that your child has a certain weakness, or they notice that they're having struggles after struggle after struggle in a certain area, right? Resist the temptation to be defensive. Not mad. Because he don't do that at home. He do this at home. He right. Why you ain't do that in class? Look, you can do this at the house all the time. And trust your child's teacher as the professional, as an educator. I would be willing to bet, there's no educator worth their salt that is going to just pinpoint a child and say that they're weak in something that they're not weak in. Right. To say that they have behavior problems when they have no behavior problems. Because the truth of the matter is, it would be utopia if everybody was well behaved, sitting in their seat, getting all the information, being able to get all the work. That would be wonderful. So if we don't have that, we're going to notice that certain students are having difficulties with certain things. Doesn't mean they're going to have that difficulty forever, but let's resist the temptation to be defensive or think that the teacher is out to get the student, whether they're talking about their behavior or whether they're talking about their academics. And also realize that a behavior that you may, as parents, accept in your house may not be a behavior that is acceptable at school. Just like there are things that happen in our house that are not acceptable in the general public, and we would get chastised for that in the general public. There are certain things you can do within your house that are acceptable that you can't do in public. There are certain things you can do at school and at home that you can't do at school. So when an educator or administrator kind of brings that to your attention, that this is school behavior, or this is school language, and this is not, and to say, well, we run it differently, that's fine, and we're not trying to impact how you run your home.
Right.
But just understand and express to your child, with like we do, okay, that might be okay at home, but when you're at school, this is what is acceptable. So just that kind of makes it an easier way to go for all involved.
I will play, I don't know if it's devil's advocate or just give us another side, because I think I did speak to you when my son was in 3rd grade, and he's always had locks, he's always had hair, and for the life of me, I know that teacher was picking on my baby,
and it might be,
and like it goes back to saying that we are human, and so I feel like that she recognized that, the stereotype of kids that have, I'm gonna be real, black boys that got locks, got long hair, that they coming from a certain type of family or from a certain type of lifestyle. And I think that any little thing that he did, she just nitpicked it. And she nitpicked it. And so it goes to parents, trust your instinct. Because at that time, he had 3 teachers.
I remember.
None of the other teachers had an issue. We were in meetings with the principal, all teachers. These other teachers said, well, he don't have no issue in my class, but you're the only one. But yet, she didn't send no note home, nothing in the agenda. But until it got to, you wanted to move him behind the door. That's all.
I remember that.
Let me not get my blood boiling.
I remember that like yesterday.
I had to tell that story the other day. That lady sat my baby behind the door when I walked in there.
Why did she do that to me?
I'm not leaving this until you move. I'm not leaving this school until you move my baby. And so, needless to say, she called the principal, and she didn't know me and the principal already had a relationship. So I was like, "Good, you called the right one." So I'm not gonna go into But like she's saying, all teachers don't have that. I don't know, are not out to get your child, but just respect the point that it may be a little issue in the classroom. And I respected that until I got to the point where it was just like over, like, this can't be like, and nobody in the building has had that issue. Yeah. And so that's what really kind of turned me. So, trust your intuitions, parents, but don't go in there, like she's saying, defensive and thinking, oh, the teacher just lying, just picking my kid. Go in there just with an open mind to see, well, what's going on. And so what I started doing, going in class, sitting in the classroom, observing, knowing your child know you there, so they're not going to act up. But I did some pop-ups. And so, just, you got to be creative. Sometimes tell you about, I got to come in late because I got to go to my child's school. So it's certain things that we do have to, as parents, we have to just make those sacrifices and make those adjustments. I know, we have a lot of parents that, maybe hourly you may miss your money, but you got to weigh, is it worth missing that little money, going to making sure your child is okay. Yeah. Making sure they, they doing what they're supposed to, and then they getting what they need. Right.
And to your point about that situation, I won't bring it back up, but that situation, that there are, you may have some some teachers. Let me say this again, like we said it at the beginning, we are all human. And so as humans, we bring our biases to the classroom. I bring my biases. Andrea brings her biases. We're human, so that's what happens. The thing is, you bring it to the classroom, but you got to check it at the door. Yeah. And that's where professionalism comes into play. That's when maturity comes into play. That's when integrity comes into play. And so when you have a situation where it's obvious that the biases are winning out, then you have to handle that. Yeah. But I would venture to say that those are few and far between.
Yeah.
And that's more of the exception and not the rule. But even within that situation or any situation where you feel like the teacher just don't she don't vibe with you, that may be the truth. That may be it. The teacher, I'm gonna be honest with you, the teacher may not really rock with your child. I don't know. I mean, everybody's not gonna rock with everybody.
Yeah.
And so one of the lessons that I've taught my kids, my own personal kids, and the students that I teach is that there are going to be times in life where, not by any fault of your own, people just not going to get with you.
Just not going to like you. Yeah.
But what are you going to do about that? Are you going to allow them to affect your future and affect your success because they have a hang up? No. The best way to get to them is to succeed.
Is be successful.
And to be contrary to whatever the negative is that they're trying to put on you. Not to feed into the negativity, but to counter that with who you really are as a person. But just know that there are times in life, and that's the lesson we have to teach our kids, that everybody's not going to like you, whether it's an adult, whether it's a child. Your obligation is not to have people to like you. Your obligation is to be true to yourself, to your family, to the values that they have instilled in you.
And then as you were talking, it made me go back to when I was in high school and I had a teacher. For whatever reason, she just didn't like me. And so, but thing was because I had the sass, but I was a straight A student. But I was a straight A student. And I played basketball, so she didn't like that. So one day she just refused to take my homework. And I'm just like, but I did. I just don't want to take it. Okay. So I go to the counselor. The counselor already know what the deal is. And so they hushed the counselor. And so the principal said, I get sent to the office one more time, I'm off the basketball team. So you know what my basketball coach did? Got me out of her class the very next day. I don't care if it was basketball season, so it had to be like towards the end of that first semester, whatever. Oh, the next day I was out of there. So I when it happened to my son, I was like, okay, now you're not finna have to go through this. We finna go ahead and get this in the bud right now. And just me recognizing that and experiencing that myself. So it's just like you say, everybody not gonna like you, but
they should be treating you fairly.
That you should be treated fairly. But the best way to make them mad is go up there and make something out of yourself. Be successful and be, as Michelle said, when they go low, we go high.
As hard as it may be.
As hard, right.
Right. Yeah. But what the common thing in your son's case and in your case is that both of you had an advocate, and so that's what our students need and our children need. They need an advocate. If whether it's a coach, whether it's another teacher, whether it's another a parent, a sibling, whatever it is, but we all need to be advocates for someone, and we all need advocates at some point. So
so I know we kind of touched on how to support the younger kids, and I know we talked about supporting the high school students just once you have trained them to be independent and allowing them to be responsible or to be an advocate for themselves. And also when you get to the point where you have a student in high school, remember we did the seminar thing and they were talking about going ahead and talking to your counselor and understanding how many classes your student needs in 8th grade. So when they get to high school, everything is already lined up. Starting to look for scholarships and stuff. But also identifying that college is not for everybody. Going to a 4-year college is not for every child. And I have a cousin that she knows her son. She was like, look, if I can get him through high school, we're good. Now after that, we're going to have to either find what he like, find his trade, and go from there. Because he's like 4 years, I'm not going to do it.
And then who knows? And that's right after high school where we're still responsible for our kids. Who knows? 10 years from now, he might say, you know what? I want to go to college. And it's on him. And that's wonderful.
And that's
so we need to, to your point, we have to recognize and let our kids know that you do have options. And although the pervasive thing and the thing that gets the most noise is to go into college and going to these schools and being in the band and having a good time or whatever. But that's
on the yard.
Yeah, that's an expensive yard. And so if that's not for your child, don't be trying to front.
Don't push
them.
They're going to be kicked out after them, 30 hours?
Yeah. And then so then you got a whole nother thing to do. Right. But this is where it comes into know your child.
Know your child.
And support them. Talk to the child. Support them in the things that interest them. This gaming thing is a big thing now. Mm-hmm. And if they play, and I tell my kids at school, look, if you can play all these games and apps, create one.
Try to build one.
Build one.
Look, Google, so you can build your own.
Google and make somebody pay you to pay to every time they click that they're paying you instead of you paying somebody else.
Right.
But find out what's important to your child. I have my oldest child who we thought was gonna go one way. It did not go that way, but good student, good dancer, great student. So when she went to college, but we didn't say this is what you're gonna major in. This is what you
got to do. Yeah.
She knew she wanted to go to college. Great, so she went. But when she got to college, she learned so much more about herself and learned about. She said, "I don't want to dance anymore. I want to explore some other parts of me." Mm-hmm. Great. So she learned other things that she does that are creative, but they're not dancing. And no matter how much I love to see her dance, no matter how much other people love to see her dance, no matter how much she touches our soul when she dances, that is not what she wanted to do. So she's not dancing in college, but she's doing things that feed her soul and that make her happy and that she's able to grow from. So, and then whatever she majored in, that's what she was majoring in. We did not have any input whatsoever on what she majored in because we wanted it to be something she wanted to do. Because the bottom line is, if they're doing something that they want to do, they'll find a way to make a living at it and to make it make sense for them. Mm-hmm. Will they have hard times? Of course. Will they have some lean times? Of course. We want that because that builds character and constitution. But in terms of you're going to go to school and you're going to do this, if I'm going to pay for it, that rarely works out, especially for us. Right. Now you come from other people have other experiences and they have old money and old companies and you're gonna work in daddy's company but that's not all of our story. It's not most of our story. So we want them to be doing something that fulfills them and that contributes to the world. So as you said, college isn't for everybody, but even the ones who go to college, let them explore who they are and find out who they are, no matter how frivolous we may think it is. Because what we consider frivolous may end up being some, the next best thing. Mm-hmm. And I bet you, people thought Steve Jobs was doing was frivolous. Right. What Bezos was doing was frivolous. Mm-hmm. What all these apps were frivolous. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought we want to have camera phones and all those types of things that people thought were just so outlandish. But look at where we are now. Where it is now. So, so let the Lord lead them and lead you. And as you're watching them grow. Better said, easier said than done. Exactly. But that is my advice.
Yes. And also, when they're growing, we were talking about those teachable moments. Start teaching them those life skills, washing dishes, how to do their own laundry, teaching them what a checkbook looks like. Although we probably don't use the check, but I still use my checkbook because I need to make sure that the bank ain't took my 2 cents. Okay. So I balance out my checkbook. So teaching them how to create budgets, how to manage their own money. Now, we're talking about technology. My son wanted to do Cash App, and he found out that you can buy stock on Cash App. And so he got his own little Cash App account. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give you this. He was like, can I buy some stock? Yeah, you can buy some stock. Let's look at what you want to do. He's so fascinated with Tesla. So it's like, and I'm glad that they have the option to buy partial stocks.
Okay.
So if you only got $20 and Tesla is worth 120, you could just put your 20 on there and get that percentage of it. And so
teaching me something now.
So yeah, he likes it. He was like, so I can buy it. So I had to break it down for him and tell him, how much the share is, and if you got this, then you can put that partial on there. But different things, let them kind of, get used to making those mistakes. Now you might, and letting them know, okay, you buy this and it go down.
You go down.
And so
you going like, down with it.
And right. And so he was like, well, what that mean? You lost your money. Yeah. And so, but like I was telling him, if it goes from 100 to 200, that means you didn't earn them $100. So just allowing them to play with those different things.
It alone.
And
just leave it alone.
And leave it. And you never know. You 13 now. When you get to be 33, how much it might be worth. So just, just expose them. And if you don't know, Google it. Google it.
Or ask a friend.
Ask a friend. And so, just don't go out there and just be blindsided. Right. It's too much information. We have access to the information that we can allow our students, allow our children to grow into areas that we never could have touched.
That's right.
Or never would have thought about touching.
Exciting and amazing.
So one thing that goes along with having those high school students and understanding that, college may not be for everybody, but setting some goals, sitting down, this is the beginning of the year. So make sure you take a little time and have them write out, if it's just 5 goals, what they want to do in the next month, the next 6 months, what do they want to do for this semester. And you can do this with elementary, middle, high school, college students.
Absolutely.
Have a plan. Because if you plan to fail, you fail to plan.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Right.
Whatever.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, I in fact just did goal setting with my 5th graders today, and we just did three goals. Good. They had to. 2 of the goals had to be academic or school related, and then 1 just whatever they wanted to, personal or whatever. Wow. So you can just use that as a framework. You can say, if we do for the younger kids, we're just going to do 3 goals. 2 have to be school related, and 1 whatever you want. And then for the older ones, maybe 5. Again, have some school related in there. Right. Have some, and then personal ones. For those of them who, if you have high school students who have aspirations of going to college, start now with investigating what colleges, why, how much, make a spreadsheet, do a pros and cons. What do you want in a college? Just put out your whole wish list of what your perfect experience would be. Do you want small town, college town? Do you want a big city? Do you want a large school? Do you want a small school? Do you want an HBCU? Do you want a PWI? Do you want a trade school? Do you want a vocational school? Do you want all male school? Do you want an all women's school? Right, so to kind of get a gauge for what you want, make that, and then find the schools that fit that, or check them off as check off the columns that are appropriate for those schools. Oh, yeah, right. And the earlier the better for that, so that you get. And I forgot about the number 1 column, the cost. Right. So how much how much, and then have an honest conversation with your student about how much you have or are willing to put in the pot for that school. Do we want, we're trying to get away from all these loans. So, have you saved? Do you have a savings for college for your student? No matter how much we save, it seems as though it's not enough. But so all of those things you need to keep in mind, and that goes along with goal setting. But you can goal set. I suggest goal setting for as young as kindergarten all the way up. All the way up. It's important that we set goals so that we can move in the direction that we want to move in. If we don't, we're just kind of out there floundering. And one thing, as far as with the colleges, start looking for those scholarships. If you know that your child wants to go to college, go ahead and start banking them. And some of them are accepting as young as 8th grade. Yeah, that's true. So go ahead and start banking that. Start building, because some of them look at community service. So start looking at what you need to do to make sure your child is competitive. That, that who's offering the scholarship is going to be looking at your child and saying, oh, wow, this is a well-rounded child, a well-rounded student. And so I wouldn't mind investing in them.
So go ahead, like she said, making that spreadsheet, looking at the scholarships and looking at the ones that you qualify for, the ones that you don't quite qualify for, but it may be borderline. I would say apply anyway, because sometimes it's only 1 or 2 people, and you may just have the up on that other person. So go when you find them, take the time. One thing that my cousin did, like she's been getting scholarships like out the Wazoo. She has like one essay that she uses.
That's right.
And she starts to tweak it for each scholarship. So make sure you got one strong. And then just make those little small adjustments to make sure it fits what that scholarship is asking for.
Absolutely.
So, setting them goals.
And for parents, what I strongly suggest is if you have not heard of the 529 plan, look into the Georgia 529 plan. That was a lifesaver for us.
Oh, really?
It's not, you don't even really have to think about it. Once you just make, and you can look at it online. It's a Georgia specific savings account for college, but you can use it at any college. You don't have to be in college in Georgia, and for any kind of expenses that come along with college. So if your child needs a computer, you can pull from that to buy the computer. If your child needs books, you can pull from that to buy books. If for tuition, you can pull from it as long as it is for the education. And so the earlier you start that, the better. It's a stock based, so sometimes it'll grow, sometimes it won't. But the earlier you start, the more time you have to recover if it doesn't. Oh, okay. So it's based on the stocks,
right?
But
and is it pre-tax?
You can do one or the other. Now, so you about to ask me. I think you have an option for either one, I believe.
Okay.
But don't, look, I'm not a representative of Georgia 2529. Please. I do use it.
Do your research.
Do your research. Go online, and they have everything you want to know. All the questions you have are on the website. But I pull from that every time it's time to write Hampton University a check.
And so, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So that works out. And one thing I also wanted to touch on, or just kind of pinpoint, that for students that are not doing so well, I know we talked about that earlier, give them a little grace. We talked about that students, each child has a different learning style. So give them a little grace, not too much. Don't completely drop. Right. Grace. Give them a little grace. Give them a little time, because sometimes, like my son, he's in different things, and he's like, I'm just tired. I'm like, okay. Take you a 1 hour break, but please believe we're going to get back on it. So I'm giving him a little grace, giving him a little time to kind of woosah, relax, and get his mind right. But you're not done for the whole night. We're going to come back to it later. And making sure that you're just taking time to study, especially a subject, math is major. If you know that they're not a good math student, use 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. Work on whatever, the multiplication factor, or whatever they're working on during class, to instill that when they go to school, it's like, okay, well, I've been doing this at home, so I got a little bit. So, just a couple of little nuggets that you can use raising your kids. Look, we raising kings and queens. We're trying to bring some geniuses up out of here.
Right. And disclaimer that I should have probably made at the beginning, this is not a foolproof, these are not foolproof strategies of the end all be all. I am not an expert in anything. All I know is I am raising young women, and I have been teaching young people for a long time. I've interacted with a lot of parents and families and children, and it is definitely a call on my life, and so I take it as such. It is a privilege and an honor and a big, huge responsibility. And so whatever I can share with others, I do that freely. And but I do want you to take what you can take, take the meat, leave the bone, do your own research, see what works for your students, see what works for your family, find your own way. And if you do that, then everybody will be better for it.
Right. And then if we miss something, add them in the comments.
Absolutely.
Because you never know who might come across this video and be like, wow, I can use that, but I'm in a different situation. So you may be able to minister, you may be able to connect with somebody that you just, you never know, because this is, the digital world, we don't know who might see this video,
absolutely,
or who may be able to use the information that we're giving. So please, if you find something that may be more beneficial, or something that may be, better for whatever your child is going through, whatever your situation, put it in the comments. Ask questions. We can do a part 2, and that way we can, have that dialogue, and we can give you the information that you need specifically.
Right.
So please be transparent, or be mindful of, and ask those questions, and we'll make sure that we come back and do our due diligence and give you the information.
Absolutely.
But yes, by all means, make sure you do your own research. Every child is different.
Every child is different.
What worked for me, what worked for Kathleen, it may not work for you. You may be able to take part of it and use it, and throw the other part away, like she said.
Right.
But make sure you just being a parent to your child. Michelle said, I watched the video where she was with Kelly Rowland, and Kelly was like, I'm not my child's friend. She was like, no, you're not their friend. You're their supporter. You're their support system, and you should be able to encourage them and allow them to grow to the little human beings that they need to be.
Right. Absolutely.
And reach their calling. So thank you so much, Kathleen.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yes. So
it is.
We will come back.
Please have me back.
Put some questions down there. Yes, it was. I appreciate it. Listen, please remember to hit the bell, subscribe, so you can get notified every time that I post. Follow me on The Real Miss Drea on Instagram. You can always catch me here on Miss Drea on YouTube. And that's all I have for y'all. Smooches.